Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of Bare Thoughts. I'm Seher Mansoor and today I have with us Amita Deshpande, the co-founder of Aarohana EcoSocial Developments. So today Amita is going to share with us how she takes plastic waste that would otherwise be landfill and make it into amazing high fashion beach bags, wallets and more through her enterprise. Well, can you just start off, Amita, by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am the co-founder of Aarohana EcoSocial Developments. That's the social enterprise we're going to talk more about later. But just to give you a quick background about myself, I got into the sector of sustainability, I think about when, I got the awareness, I would say, when I was a little child, when I was in the school. And the first time I did a seminar in my eighth standard, I think, was on solid waste management. And since then, I've been thinking as to why people are still using disposables when it is not degradable. Those are the kinds of questions that started coming to my mind, and it just grew on and on and on as I grew older. But still, I went on to do my regular career. I was an IT engineer for the first few years of my career profession. And then I just grew upon me that I need to get into the sector which I really, really care and really love for. And that's when in 2009, I decided to quit my IT job. I went to the US to do my master's, which was partly in sustainability and then in management. And that's when I actually formally went into this field to actually take it forward from there. So the first the few years I did my masters, then I worked there for a few years, and then obviously India is where I wanted to work, and I planned to come back. And 2013 is when I got back to join my business partner, Nandan Bhatt, who's also an old friend of mine from really long time ago. And we both started this company, Aarohana, and I'll tell you more about that when we come to that question.
Great, thank you so much for sharing. I think this is a perfect segue for you to tell us a little bit more about Aarohana. Can you tell us a little bit about your social enterprise?
Yes, I will, of course. So Arohana is the work that we do in Arohana is upcycling of plastic waste. And primarily, this waste is your biscuit wrappers and wafer packets and things that are not easily recyclable and are also not degradable. So these, like I said, wafer packets, biscuit wrappers, all kinds of packaging. Plus, we also use a lot of carry bags, which are ideally banned from the markets, but they are still available. And recently, we've also started using cassette tapes. All the old audio and video cassette tapes, we got hold of a lot of them because all of them were on their way to the landfills. Because again, nothing happens to them, nothing can be done, no recycling can be done. So we got hold of them as well, and then we started upcycling those. We also upcycle gift wrappers. So the glittery wrapping, we call it wrapping paper, but it's not paper, it's plastic. So we use all these materials. And the interesting part is that we don't use a conventional recycling method. What we do is we use traditional charkha and hand looms to actually weave these plastic pieces together. And in the process of creating craft from the waste, we are also creating employment. And the primary reason we started this was also that we wanted to create rural employment. So our workshops are located in a tribal village in Dadra and Nagar Haveli, which is on the border of Gujarat and Maharashtra. That's where our first workshop is. And we're employing tribal women and youth from that village to do the weaving jobs. And these are full-time jobs. We don't pay them just on a per piece basis, but we actually give them a full-time employment through our work. So once these fabrics are ready, we take them to our workshop in Pune, in the city of Pune, the design and manufacturing setup, where we make different kinds of beautiful products from this plastic waste. So the products are unbelievable. You must really go and check out the products that we have online. So it will, you'll yourself will be totally surprised. So that was my journey from being, a student thinking about solid waste and what should be done with it, to an IT engineer, and now really getting into the craft and design field working with waste. So it's been a very interesting journey for me and Nandan, because both of us have been working for getting Aarohana to where it is right now in the past 5 years.
I think it's just so phenomenal how you take multi-layered plastic, something that is so difficult to upcycle or recycle, and convert into something so amazing. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you incorporate circularity into your design process?
Sure. So yeah, I'm glad you brought about this topic, because circular economy is where we all want to go to, right? What we do is, like, at the center of everything right now, I see the consumer. Okay, because we, the consumer, consume plastic, and unfortunately, though we try to avoid so much plastic, it still lands up in our households in form of packaging, right? Even if we avoid using plastic bags. Now, whatever plastic remains, we usually we directly work with waste picker organizations who collect this plastic waste, and then that plastic waste is collected by us directly, and then it's taken to our workshop to upcycle it. At the end of the life cycle of that plastic, it is again going back to the consumer, who would then eventually want to use upcycled products, right? So that's how I call it, completing the cycle, because somebody who's creating the waste is eventually coming back and buying that waste. Secondly, if I want to go a little bit more in detail about how we source these raw materials, so it's not directly from households that we collect it. There's one big reason for that. Now, if I come to collect directly from your household, your you will sort of get a little complacent that somebody is there to collect my waste, so I can create more waste. So we don't want that kind of habit to come into people in their minds, that there's somebody who's there to collect my waste. Hence, we directly work with waste pickers. Now, waste pickers are anyways doing their job very well. They're coming to every household and collecting all this waste, and they earn a little bit of livelihood when we purchase this plastic from them. And there are waste picker organizations, like in Pune we have Swachh and Purnam. Then there are a few waste picker organizations in the city that the village where we work close to, that there's a city over there, we collect that from there. We would love to do something similar in Bangalore too. We've had some discussions with Sahas also. So let's see how this goes. We want to do this as much as possible.
That's so great to hear that you actually source from waste pickers, waste collectors, swatch workers who are really at the forefront of waste collection.
And eventually, there's one more angle to this that's opening up, is the industries are getting a little aware about the waste that they generate. And especially with the law called Extended Producer Responsibility, EPR, that has come into picture in 2016, a lot of corporates are looking at their post-consumer waste and where it's going and how it's being disposed. So that could open up a potential, a little collaboration between us and corporates to see how more waste can be upcycled, and possibly they could also purchase it back from us as gifting products made of their own branded waste. So those are certain things that we are looking at. Again, that's another circular, bigger, rather larger circle that we are trying to complete, coming back to the manufacturer and not just the consumer.
Just out of curiosity, have you seen interest from corporates in this area of extended producer responsibility?
Yes, there are companies who are interested. There are some companies who have actually given us some corporate orders in the past, where we have upcycled their waste and created gift items for them, which they eventually gifted to their customers and employees. So that those were certain interesting projects we did in the recent past.
That's really encouraging to hear.
It is, yeah. Of course, we want everybody to go to a certain stage where this kind of plastic waste is not created only. So we definitely want the refuse, reduce, reuse to be prevalent than recycling. But let's see, recycling seems to be easier than refuse, reduce, reuse at present. But let's try to generate awareness on the first 3 hours more than the last hour.
I really appreciate that even though you are using upcycled waste, I love that you really advocate for refusing and reusing in the first place.
Totally, totally. Because that's what we want to do. So we are not in this space to recycle, you know. If we were a recycling organization, then we would have recycled, or we would have gotten to, you know, mechanized recycling or chemical recycling, which recycles more plastic. But we've kept ourselves limited to handicraft and handmade recycling or upcycling because this is just a media to make people aware. Our products are not the solution, or our process is not the solution. The solution is people should understand that refuse, reduce, reuse is the way forward. Recycling, upcycling comes at the end.
Speaking of handcrafted, can you tell us a little bit about the handmade and handcrafted element that is embodied in all of the Aarohana bags and how they are hand woven? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So I'm sure everybody knows how handloom saris are made, right? So that is an handloom shawl. So these are traditional crafts that our country has been really, into for hundreds of years, and many people unfortunately had to leave this craft because of the demand and supply, the economics that really made that happen, especially after the industrial revolution when everything became industrialized and fabric making became industrialized. So a lot of people actually lost their jobs. But still, you know, it's very interesting to know that craft is the second largest employer after agriculture in our country. So to give that craft a boost is extremely important, and what we are trying to do is not necessarily go to people who are already practicing craft, but we are doing this in uh, places where craft has been forgotten. So the tribal village where we work, these are originally Warli tribals, you know, but they don't want to go back to their Warli art because obviously, you know, there's some kind of stigma attached to it that our ancestors did that, we don't want to do it, and the youngsters wanted to do something new. And when we went to them, showing them that weaving is a possibility, they were really excited. So we found this very interesting, how the younger generation was happy adopting something else, another craft, and not adopting their own craft, which is a little, you know, an interesting psychological process going on over there. So what we did was we collected a bunch of women and youth from that village, and we taught them handloom weaving. And then we introduced them to waste plastic. Now, waste plastic comes in various forms and various sizes, shapes. It's torn and tattered also sometimes. So what we do is we have to manually do everything. We can't mechanize any single step in that. So the first step that happens is washing of all this plastic, though we ensure that the plastic that comes to us is already segregated at source, and we don't collect waste which goes into the landfill, so that's, it's not soiled and it's not contaminated. But even if after that it comes to us, we do a washing process. We use biodegradable cleaners to make this process of washing, and then we sanitize all this plastic waste, and then manually, just using a pair of scissors, we cut each and every wrapper. Okay, then uh, traditionally, how yarn used to be made, using a charkha, right? So we use that traditional charkha to make a yarn like structure from the waste plastic, and then that is used directly on handlooms to weave the fabric. And if you are aware of the handloom or of the textile terms warp and weft, so our plastic, the wrappers and the plastic bags are the weft in our process. And the warp that we use is made from recycled PET bottles, all the Bisclery and Coke bottles. Those are the PET bottles. So we use them to as warp. So that's how our fabric is created.
A bunch of us at office actually have your bags, but kind of hearing the design process and all of the handcrafted elements that go behind it makes me appreciate it so much more than I already did.
Yeah, and once this is very interesting because the fabric that we create, we are trying to create in the sizes that is needed for the bag to be made. So we try to avoid wastage as much as possible. Hence, we create fabric. So, for example, our beach bag, we know the standard size of the fabric that is required. So we weave that size of fabric, and then from that we make that specific bag. So that becomes in a way it's difficult because the weaving process is makes it a little lengthier, but when we stitch it, it ensures that we are not creating new waste, because textile waste in itself is another big problem. So we are trying to avoid that by standardizing our sizes of fabrics. And then in the Pune unit, where we have our designing and manufacturing going on, that's where all the products are created. And we have professional tailors in our Pune unit who make really good quality products. So that's and we in this whole process we are also trying to use as much handicraft as possible in other forms. So for example, some of our uh, products use block print or hand dyed fabric, again handloom fabric wherever possible we are trying to use. And other than our fabric, everything else that we use is either natural, that is cotton or jute, or it is recycled. So in some of our products, we are also using waste flex banners, those large hoardings that we see everywhere. So we try to use those. We use cotton belts. In some places, we've tried to use upcycled denim belts. So we're trying to do, creative things with other kinds of waste also as much as possible.
That's interesting that you're actually diversifying to other materials like flex and denim.
Yes, but we are not keeping that as a focus. Our focus is still plastic waste because that's the major problem right now. For the other kinds of waste, it's still manageable, it's still reusable or recyclable. But the wrappers and multi-layered packaging, as you rightly said, is a big nuisance.
So, Amita, can you tell us a little bit about the design process at the Pune lab once the fabric is woven in hand spun and then comes to the Pune setup? Do you basically then decide that this should become a beach bag or this should become a wallet? Can you tell us a little bit about what happens really at that Pune workshop?
Yeah, so we've sort of standardized the fabric sizes. So once they come to the Pune office, they come in those standard sizes, and we sort of know that with that size of fabric, what kind of bags and what kind of products are made. And the Pune office is actually, it's not a very fancy design studio as we really wanted to be yet, but we typically have interns working with us for designing, and once in 3-4 months we have a bunch of designers or a couple of designers who make the design, and then that is our production team continues to make that, and then we have a sales and marketing team who are a really passionate bunch of individuals. You've spoken to Shivalika, we have Sukanya, Nyanada, and Nikhil. These are our teammates, and Zai. They are really passionate individuals. Some of them have been our customers before, and now they've joined our team. So I would really not call them employees. They are just our team of passionate eco sensitive people.
Amita, can you tell me a little bit about your team? So, I'm guessing when you started in 2015, it was just you and your co-founder. How have you evolved over the days, and kind of how have you grown? Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. So Nandan and I started this entity in 2015. That's when we initially we decided to outsource everything. So we had outsourced our weaving process and as well as our tailoring process, because we weren't sure how it's going to take off. It was a lot of R&D that was needed at that point in time. So we spent a lot of time doing research and development, and I think we still were making products and testing out the market in parallel. So we started exhibitions. We started participating in exhibitions, especially in Pune. So for the first few months, and testing out the market, its rates, and everything. And then we started going to Mumbai and Bangalore and other cities, and of course other countries also now we have our partners as well as exhibitions going on in other countries also. And in terms of the team, I think initially, like I said, we were outsourcing, but in about 5 to 6 months' time, we realized that this has to be done hands-on and it has to be done in-house, and that's when we started hiring people. First, initially, we started hiring only artisans, and Nandan and I were doing all the running around of doing administration and marketing and everything else. But the artisans, one of our oldest employees, Sheikh Bhai, he's still with us, and he was our first tailor. And the weaving unit was also started in the little village in Silvassa. I am originally coming from Silvassa, so I have family there, and we had this little village whom people from where we knew already, and they were also very excited to start. So we had a really passionate person who was a supervisor, who initially came in and helped us start the unit. And all the local tribal youths, they were really interested and they started working with us. They learned the process. So initially we were only 3 in the village. That was in 2016, and 3 people in the Pune city workshop. And now we have 15 people in the village and 14 people in Pune. So we are 29 of us right now. And the team is growing, as in even during the lockdown, we hired one person. So we are we are really wanting to keep this going. We don't want to lose on upcycling of waste, because waste is still getting created. So during the lockdown also, we tried to work as much as possible from home. Even our tribal people, our villagers, they were working from home. They were cutting plastic and doing some of the steps which they could at home. They were continuing to do that. So we were also so happy that they were supporting us, and we didn't cut down their salaries at all. We keep on paying them. We are still paying them. But the sales are down, right? So we had to come up with some interesting ideas to keep our income going as much as possible. And the supporters of ours, who are specifically all our customers, have come to rescue us at this time, which was really, really grateful. I'm really grateful to them.
Yeah, definitely. Having a small enterprise myself, I totally echo all of your sentiments. Another question I had for you is, during these difficult times of COVID-19, what are some of the coping mechanisms that, as an enterprise, you have incorporated?
Yeah. So actually, like I said, the team cooperated. Hence, it was easier for us to it is still a problem here in Pune because we are in a hotspot situation. But in the village, the lockdown has sort of relaxed a little bit. So we have kept the workshop partly open, and partly people are working from home still. So that was one way in which we continued. Secondly, from sales or income revenue generation point of view, we launched some gift vouchers. So a lot of our existing customers really showed us their support and purchased these gift vouchers, because of which our salaries of our May will be, given. Otherwise, it was really getting difficult for us to gather the required money for that, because being a small enterprise, we are hand to mouth. So we don't have a lot of savings, and especially because it was the end of the year, it was even more difficult, because we had to pay taxes and everything else. But our team is really passionate. Our sales and marketing team is also very passionate. They are still working from home for us. They themselves, a few of them, offered to take a full salary cut, so that the tribal and the poor people would be we could give salaries to them. That wasn't needed this month, but I hope that's not needed again as well, because we want to keep salaries of everybody going.
Yeah, truly now, more than ever before, we've kind of seen the power of our teams to come together and collaborate and make it through anything. So honestly, a big shout out to our team.
True, true. All of us, we are really a passionate bunch of people. I'm so glad that even during this very, very difficult situation, all of us are standing together and helping each other out.
Amita, I wanted to ask you, what are some of the challenges you faced in keeping your environmental, social, and economic objectives all alive at once?
Yeah, that's a very, very important question. So, uh, see, economically, every organization tries to do well, right? But here in our case, we also want to do something that is environmentally and socially conscious. Now, for that, the challenges are many, many. I don't know how to, list them here. But a few of the very prominent ones is the collection of waste. It is a very, very difficult process, and especially because very few people segregate at source. People really need to segregate at least their wet waste and compost it and keep the dry waste separate. Only then can it come to us for upcycling. If we were looking at only at economic gains of that, we would have gone into typical recycling like I earlier said. But in this case, because we are doing upcycling, we're working with hands, we don't want the waste to be contaminated, and we're going to make some products which everybody is going to use, so that waste should not be contaminated. So that's the primary the challenge that we have is segregation of waste, collection of waste, and then it reaching us in the right state. Secondly, again, because we want to work for the social sector, and we wanted to work for the rural livelihoods, because urban livelihoods are already being taken care of to a large extent. But the problem of migration still stands, and the biggest example that we've seen was right now during the COVID situation, when these migrant laborers wanted to go back home, but they didn't have a way to go back home. And so some villages also had shut down their doors for these migrants. They didn't want them to come back because they were scared that these people are infected. Now what happens in such a situation is that these people, if they were in their hometowns and they were working over there on some or the other livelihood, they wouldn't have to leave their homes. They would have still stayed safe. Villages are the safest right now. They would have been safe. So that's what we've been working on for the past 5 years, is that we were trying to create livelihoods in their villages. Though it is very difficult for us to manage economically, it erodes our profits, but we still want to do that. We still want to work in the villages as much as possible. And that's a challenge again, to balance the social and economic situation. And overall, our profit margins are low. It is specifically because we are trying to do the other two parts as well. So it becomes difficult for us to give people give discounts and promotion offers. We can't do that because our margins itself are low, and sometimes the prices have to be kept high of certain products. But I think our supporters are already very supportive of it, and they understand the effort that is going behind each and every product. So we want, that is one way for us to keep it going, is to have more and more people appreciate and understand the work and pay for the craft and not for the product itself, because we are definitely giving the quality and the design as it is for many of our competitors. Like I jokingly always say this, that we are trying to compete with Louis Vuitton. But of course that is a joke. But we obviously we're not going to price our products so high, but it's an alternative. People should actually purchase us as an alternative to a laptop bag or a tote bag that they would otherwise purchase from the market.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think your customers are investing in the craft. They're investing in a cleaner planet. They're investing in the social values that you embody.
And you are a customer, so you definitely should give us a testimonial.
So, what is that one piece of advice, Amita, that you would give to aspiring eco entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs who want to get into this space?
Sure. Yes, I think the most important is persistence, because we and entrepreneurs anyways have to be persistent, but especially the eco and the eco-social entrepreneurs that like us, the most important thing is that we have to be persistent is because we do face a lot of challenges, and all these challenges are actually challenging our ethics and the whole point for which we started this. So we should not let that go. We should not we should not bend. we should keep our persistence, and it happens. It opens up, even if it's a little late. It opens up, and nowadays there are lots of supporters who are supporting entrepreneurs like us. There are financial supports. There's resource support. So we should really uh, be consistent and keep going.
So, Amita, before I let you go, one last question. What is that one piece of advice you'd like to give people to live more mindfully?
Hmm. Yeah. So, see, first of all, like I said, the 4 R's are what I always focus on. Refuse anything that you don't need. Let's not buy it, or let's not have it. Okay, even if it is like it's a material thing, or a a virtual thing, I would say. But let's refuse first. Secondly, reuse whatever we have already, so that more resources are not extracted from the planet. Third is reduce our consumption in general, and then look at recycling and upcycling our whatever we generate. Okay, and in on top of all this is that whenever we are going to buy, also when we are going to shop for anything, be it our grocery or vegetables or products like luxury products, etc., always look at the story behind it. That story should be, it should really be a strong story, environmentally and socially. Let's not look at environment and society separately. We should look them together. That's why we call ourselves eco-social. I think the choices that we as consumers make is what is going to drive the world. If we make sustainable choices, that's how the world is going to be. If we make unsustainable choices, we are looking at the repercussions today as well. So we really need to be aware. So remember the 4 R's and the alternatives. When you go shopping, always look at alternatives, sustainable alternatives. And I think, and now of course bare necessities is giving us a lot of opportunity there to shop sustainably.
Thank you so much, Amita, for joining us today. I thoroughly enjoyed hearing your journey and how Aarohana is balancing all of the environmental, social, and economic objectives. Thank you so much for taking time off and sharing your journey with us.